What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I'm here with something that I know you guys all are very excited to see. It's probably, when you woke up this morning, it was probably on the top of your to-do list. Talk politics, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. But we're going to keep our emotions out of it. We're going to use facts. We're going to use trends, and we're just going to be, I already made a lot of bets, and I was not going to put this video out. I was thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? I made again, the reason my channel is here is because if I make a bet on something and I really believe it to be true, I want others to have that same information. So you guys, I don't really like I really don't. I'm not a fan of many of these people. I can tell you, I like people from Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. I don't look at the red and blue. That's basically what I'll tell you. Conservatives call me crazy and liberals call me crazy. So, like, you can do what you want with that. I have very different theories where I'm not even considered either, I guess, because both sides see me as nuts. But anyway, my point is, it's not like I like or dislike these people, but I have been watching them for a while, only because whenever I come to my parents' folks, they got the news on, or I go to my friends, parents, folks, they got the news on. You know how that is. And you always see it playing, and you see the same people, right? You see the same actors that are definitely going to be staying as senators or governors. So I thought it'd be fun to go over who we think is going to win these races between the senators, the governors. And the reason I wanted to do it today is because there are some races where, for example, we have Tony Evers versus Tim Michaels. I had watched Evers beat, it was, I believe, I always get the two guys mixed up. Just give me a second because I don't like looking things up. He was Scott Walker. I believe he beat Scott Walker, and he beat him because Scott Walker is not liked by many people at all. And at the same time, Ron Johnson's a heavy favorite in Wisconsin. So Tim Evers was an underdog when I was going to do this video like 3 days ago. But then I was worried about, people thinking just because it's political. But then I'm thinking, well, I'm picking with my statistical prowess, as you would call it. I'm not using any kind of, I don't care about either of these guys. But yeah, so there's a lot of these that really moved. Carrie Lake was a 50-50. I knew she was going to win, and now she's an 8-1. So I wanted to get this out before these move too fast. And some of these 50-50s that there are still available aren't available. So that being said, we're going to go to the interactive map. And first we're going to look at the incumbents. So these are who's currently in office, right, for all the states. And then we're going to go with the consensus. This is what all of this, quote, experts have, right? And, of course, they don't pick any of the tough ones. They throw them as toss-ups, but that's fine. So this is how they have it. Let's see if we can do better than the consensus. I think that'll be fun. So we'll go to the very first state, or the very first, it's going to be Arizona. Mark Kelly versus Blake Masters. Now, this is an interesting one. Mark Kelly, I remember he ran against McSally, and towards the end, there was not a lot of endearment for McSally from her own party even, and there's been more energy from Arizona in my opinion, because I took a trip out west. I was in Nevada, I was in Arizona, I was in Colorado for a little bit, and a lot of these states aren't as you would believe them to be. So we have to remember the midterms are a lot different than the presidential elections. And all that being said, I do think Blake Masters beats Mark Kelly based on the Vegas movement. I do think it's a lean, so it's not going to be something that I think he easily takes, but I do think he winds up taking it, akin to how Masters took it against McSally. McSally was doing well for a while. Then they found out that she was for abortion, so a lot of Republicans didn't vote for her, and that was also one of the 6 contested states. So this time around, this midterm, the way that I've been looking at Carrie Lake's movement and a lot of other Republicans in Arizona, it just makes sense that Masters does edge out, in my opinion, Kelly for that race. So that's a good one. I think you can get in on at pretty good odds. You're getting plus odds there, I believe. So That's the first one I like and why I like it. And to me, these guys are like watching these guys do their, when they do it with whether it's the Democrats trying to roast somebody for being a Republican or a Republican trying to roast someone for being a Democrat. It's great watching Rand Paul and then Adam Schiff and these guys go back and forth, and they probably have drinks afterwards. So again, I'm not a fan of any of them, but we're gonna move on. Michael Bennet, as you see, he's doing a third term against someone who might be considered a upset. O'Dea. Vegas has given him decent odds, like 4-1, which usually would be like 10-1. But I don't think there's any upset in Colorado here. Now the governor's race could be a little different, but I don't think that's till 24. Bennett holds. When you have incumbents that have been there for a little bit, and they are in states that are primarily, even if it's a small pocket of the state, as we know with Boulder, Colorado, you're still going to have the person typically hold seats. So that's going to happen for both sides. That's why guys like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but guys like Ron Johnson are going to win. And that's why, in my opinion, in this case, it's going to be Michael Bennet that wins. O'Dea is not a big name. Again, you have to be a draw. It's just like wrestling. That's why they do rallies and basically cut promos. So here I have it holding for the Democratic Party. Rubio, I live in Florida. I can tell you, I'm not a fan of the guy. He seems like a very establishment guy. I accidentally changed Georgia. I don't think anyone's a fan of the guy, but people in Florida, and I'm talking up and down Florida, just from the people I've spoken with from traveling, and I do a lot of traveling for crypto, they are basically like, we're voting red line. So I know it sounds kind of ignorant, but I know, a lot of people are like that. I try and just, if I voted for the first time recently, and I can tell you this, I was like the only person at the place that wasn't voting straight down ticket, because I saw a few people that I said, you know what, this person seems like they're full of shit. So I looked into it, and I think a lot of it's, I have a George Carlin philosophy anyway, but I thought it'd be cool to do a vote anyway. And there was a few people in there that didn't match up with the others, but I didn't just pick one, down the line. So I say that for Rubio. Most people in Florida don't think like that. Most people in the world don't think like that. They're going to rather Rubio win over anybody that's not a Republican. And Florida it might as well be designated at this point, if you live here, you'll probably agree with me, as a red state. Nothing would indicate to me Florida is not a strong Republican state. People forget, like, the demographics get mixed up, and people forget that Cuban Americans love the Republican conservative ideals, and it makes it almost impossible for it to be a blue state. It could be a toss-up state, but it really depends on who's running. Now we have Warnock and Herschel Walker, and this one's a great one. This one's a great trend, and here's where we get into sports. I like Herschel because I think there are people that like Herschel because they understand he's a fighter, and it's not a coincidence. Tito Ortiz got into Congress. Burgess Owens got into the House of Representatives. You're seeing fighters. Kane, the wrestler, got in. You see athletes getting in. You see, and it's because they're fighters. Ric Flair brought this up. I thought it was a cool point. They asked Ric Flair in 2016 why he knew, quote, knew Trump was going to win. And they asked him why he knew that. He said, because you can love him or hate him, but he's a man of the people. He's traveled the world. As a wrestler, we've traveled the world, and we understand somebody in Colorado is a lot different than somebody in Virginia. They're the same people, but you have to learn basically to be almost a different person in every state. And he said Trump had that for him, almost like that wrestler's ability. And that's why Flair said he was going to win. And he has Herschel Walker winning too for the same reason. It's that gritty mentality. I think it's why Kane won. He's a mayor in Tennessee now. And it's a lot of UFC fighters getting in. It's interesting. And then you see they're being backed by the UFC. So guys like Herschel are going to be backed by Masvidal. And that's going to get him votes. And he's going to have a lot of appeal because people like Herschel Walker. He doesn't come off to, in my opinion, like someone who's fringe on either side. And he seems like somebody who's going to stand up for his values. So, and again, I say seems because I don't know any of these people. They could all be lying out their teeth. But to the public, that's all we have. So I think this one, Georgia's always interesting. I think it becomes a runoff. Warnock won because there was a runoff, and again, he was running against, I think it was Kelly Loeffler, and she, like the day before, one of her staffers got killed in a crash. She was one of the Republicans that wasn't helping Trump with his, with his pleas of the fraud. And as we know, if you're a Republican and you do that, you're not going to get a lot of Republican support. So I do believe that her losing was more indicative of just her not playing politics well. And if she had completely gone, on the Trump bandwagon, she would have got those Trump voters and won. But it wasn't enough. And then you have the Abrams supporters and a lot of people enthusiastic. So I do believe that's why Warnock was able to win, which is, all power to him. However you win is how you win. But I'm saying this time around, I think Herschel's much stronger than Loeffler was. And I do think that he winds up edging it out. But I do think it's a runoff where George is probably going to be up in the air for a few days. So if you bet that one, you might not get paid out like the other ones quickly. But I don't think it's going to be contested for weeks. It's just they might have to do a runoff, which sometimes I believe is in January or something. Chuck Grassley, he's winning. There's nothing. It's these guys. Some of them are locked in for he's 7 now? Yeah, 7th. So these career politicians are career politicians for a reason. They have their assignments for a reason. He's got a very high assignment where he does a lot of the oversight for the Republican Party, and it's in a very important state for them. So he when someone wins 4 or 5 times, they're going to keep winning unless something crazy happens, like they get caught in some kind of controversy. Then they might not win, and even then they usually still win. I mean, Newsom got recalled, but then was immediately reelected. So even when there's controversy, typically the person will still win. So Grassley, I don't see any way he loses. Richard Burr's, he's stepping down, and this one's an interesting one. Again, I like to watch. I watch Bernie rallies, and he stopped doing them for a while, so I started watching Trump rallies, and I noticed kind of the same energy on both. But Trump does a very intelligent thing, and people don't realize this. He doesn't campaign for himself. Like, he does, but what he really does is, I don't know why they have this. Ted Budd's North Carolina, right? Oh, we're going by... Yeah, Ted Budd's North Carolina. I don't know how the consensus has this as a... Yeah, this is going to Ted Budd. He's winning that state. I bet you the Vegas odds would bear that out too. Maybe the polls aren't saying so that's why. But the only guy that I've heard Trump mention as much as Ted Budd is Ron DeSantis. Let me tell you a funny story about Ron DeSantis. He was running against 2 individuals and for governor. One of them was Adam Putnam, who is kind of like a Rick Scott. And the other the reason I know these things is I just remember names really well, and so it's not like I don't watch that many politics, but I'll remember these little things. So and that's why I think it's cool, because I don't really watch, just like the games. I don't really watch the games, but I'm able to kind of figure shit out. So in this case, we had Adam Putnam. We had another guy who was just basically trying to pass him off as a Trump guy. There might have been that girl Lisa Bonnie or something. She's a high Republican figure, but really the main race was DeSantis and Gilliam, as people know, but for the Republican side, Trump was back in DeSantis, and I wasn't a fan of his, because I'm like, this guy's just basically saying, yeah, Trump's the best, vote for me, and whether you love somebody or hate somebody, you don't want a politician running on the merits of another politician or another person. It just doesn't sound good. It's like the people that run because Biden sucks or because Biden's great, or because Trump sucks or because Trump's great. They should be running on their own merits. So when DeSantis wasn't doing that and Trump kept backing him, I'm like, I don't know, this guy might not be able to stand on his own 2 feet. Then he got washed in his debate with Gilliam. When he didn't have Trump to help him, Gilliam destroyed him. So I was like, I think Trump backed the wrong horse. He should have gone with Putnam or somebody else. DeSantis won by like 0.2 of a point. And now you can see how much his charisma has grown. How, even like him or not, he can handle pressure where he couldn't before. My point is, Trump went out of his way to really get DeSantis in there. So Ted Budd's going to be no different. He's obviously getting Ted Budd in there as a senator. He's done so many rallies for him. It's pretty insane. So those things make a difference when you're at a rally of 40,000 people, and every time you're hearing Ted Budd, Ted Budd, Ted Budd. So that's Richard Burr. He's stepping down, and I think Ted Budd, A, because when the incumbent's usually a certain party, it will stick, and B, because of how popular Ted Budd is amongst, he's going to be one of your going forward top senators for the Republican side that people like, that the Republicans like. Just like the Democrats have theirs, they have their Schumer, you have your, whoever your favorite one is. Some people have different favorites, but in the House, a lot of people like AOC. Same for the Republican with, Matt Gaetz, Ted Budd, etc. So Ted Budd wins this one. Maggie Hassan, Don Balduke. Here's a good one for you guys, because if you want good odds, again, this one was like 8-1 not too long ago. I think Vegas knows something. Hassan did win, and this one, as you can see, she won narrowly in the election year. And I remember watching it, and I was wondering, why do they keep having New Hampshire as a blue state? I never got it, because they have like Georgia, Arizona, all these other states as purple states, even Texas. Meanwhile, George Bush won New Hampshire against, I forget who it was, but he won it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Obama lost it in one of his terms. So it's not a crazy blue state. It never was, nor was Virginia. That's why you saw the governor just win Virginia, the Republican. I'd just like to point this out because a person put out a video a long time ago basically saying how they use Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that little Rust Belt, to manipulate people for years into thinking that they're different colors than they really are. And they do it on both sides. But in this case, New Hampshire, even Maine, I think people think because New Hampshire's by Vermont, it has to be like a blue state. But if you look at the numbers, it's not. And it came so close. It was actually Trump's closest state that was ruled for Biden. I think it was like a tenth of a point. It was so close. And Hillary, I know, was the closest. She won it, but it was like a tenth of a point. In this race where you have a lot of motivated people, and don't forget, the reason I'm also edging a lot of these states to the Republicans is so many people were just happy to get Trump out. That's all they wanted. So they're not going to be racing out for these midterms like Republicans are, who want Republicans in because they're thinking of the long term for Trump. The people that wanted him out just wanted him out. My sister's really against him. My mother's really for him. My sister's like, I don't care if you stick George Soros in there, get him out, get Trump out. My mother is like, well, if enough Republicans get in, then maybe it's better for Trump. So you have both sides. So I just think the midterms, in this case, heavily favor the Republican Party. So I do think Maggie Hassan is the first upset. I think she loses, that'd be they have it as like a close here, but they're going to, on the news, they're going to call it an upset all day if Don Balduke wins. And I do have Don winning. Here's another one. I just went out to Vegas. I literally just went out to Vegas, and I can promise you guys, this man, and again, he's getting 3-1, and he's a favorite, and he was getting like 3-1 as an underdog when I was out in Vegas, and even after that, he's getting a lot of. I'll notice if they're showing a lot of commercials for someone, they're not too afraid of that person winning, and people just talking like in poker games, whatever, talking outside. Of course, it comes up at some point. People like Adam Laxalt. I don't know. I don't know what he's done for Nevada myself. I know some people have lived out there. Tristan, if you're watching, maybe you can help. But yeah, I think Adam Laxalt wins this one easily. Vegas is also bearing that out. They're heavily showing that he's not only moving up, but now as a favorite. So, and as you can see, there's a lot of sections, right? That's basically how it works. It's like a war. You have Colorado is holding it down in the middle there. That's why there is a gubernatorial race that I do think will be close, and a couple House races. But I don't think Bennett's losing. But yeah, Laxalt, again, they might call an upset. But Nevada, again, it's not one of those states that's 50-50. It's where Dana White's got pull. Yeah, people have to remember these tight little things. And Dana White's a Trump supporter. And every day you're seeing more support out of states like New Mexico, where you just wouldn't expect it, or you're seeing closer races. I think actually a Republican won the biggest upset in history. They said it was like akin to AOC's, but only he was actually running against somebody, and he won. They said it was because of the border. Again, I don't follow that stuff as much as I follow the theatrics. So, yes, I do have the Mastro losing. If she was a 3 or 4th term representative or senator, I could give her the edge. But I think Laxalt's got too much firepower going. Now, here's Tim Ryan and Vance. I do think this is a potential upset for the Democratic Party, but I will say I'm going to lean it to Vance. And the reason for Rob Portman is not a... I didn't mean to change that. I don't know what they had it at, but Rob Portman is, he's been there for a while. He's kind of just there. He's not someone that's going to be coming out like Rand Paul and like Schumer and like Johnson and like who are the other ones? You got Manchin and Blumenthal and John Kennedy, all them. He's not going to be coming out like that, but he was just always kind of there and before that in the House of Representatives, he was just there. Tim Ryan has just seems to have this trend of running and then losing. Like he just runs all the time and loses. Like I've yet to, I'm sure he's won, but I always see him run for like a different race, and it's usually at the last minute. This time he kind of threw his hat in earlier, but again, Ohio, I just don't see not going red ticket. It's going to be just like Florida and Texas. Outside of a few pockets, it's going to be right down the line. Toomey is stepping down, and here's the one. At the beginning, I thought Fetterman was definitely going to win because I was like, I don't think that many people. I think a lot of people think Oz is a phony. I don't see him getting that strong of support. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen in the election, and I was looking at a bunch of different factors, and they do have it as a toss-up. Like I said, they're cowards, so the 270 to win and all the different political ones just have it as a toss-up because, of course, they're too cowardly to say who they think it's going to be. But I'm going to lean it to Oz. I think it makes sense, and I'll tell you why. They got this Fauci narrative going where he's being scapegoated and the whole COVID, thing, and again, I say scapegoated because it's never one person. So I'm not saying like, oh, he's perfectly innocent. What I'm saying is Fauci's the guy that's going to catch all the shit from the Republican side regarding anything bad that might have come out of the COVID, his narrative, like his suggestions, etc. And with Rand Paul in office, now you got I don't think it's a coincidence. These elections are like wars, and they play them like chess, where they need to win certain states for certain reasons. So while I don't see the governorship going to Mastriano, I do think Shapiro holds that for the Democratic side. On the senator's side, on the senatorial side, I do see Toomey stepping down. He's not even loved that much, and he was getting voted for. So I think Oz, somebody that could definitely get votes across the aisle, whereas Fetterman, I just don't see getting many red votes at all. And if you look at any of the numbers, so like I looked at the ones that are considered conspiracies, I looked at the numbers that are considered real. So whichever source you look at, from left to right, from up to down, it has the fact that every month Pennsylvania has way more people registering as a Republican. So that's going to be the reason they explain why Oz was able to beat Fetterman, in my opinion. Mike Lee's another one. This guy, Evan McMullen, funny story. And again, I only remember his name because of what he did in 2016 and 2020. He essentially ran both times because he decided that Trump and Hillary were both so bad that we needed a contested election. So he ran in Utah for the sole purpose of screwing up that state and hoping that nobody hit 270. It didn't work. Trump kind of trounced him. And then he tried it again in 2020. So now he's actually running for a legitimate position. And I don't think he wins. Again, the guy, he's one of those, he just kind of runs in different areas, and he's going against Mike Lee, the only independent. I believe he's an independent besides Bernie. He might be identified as a Republican, but you see Lee here, or McMullen here is identified as I don't know what party he is. I thought it was independent, but it could be something like the Green Party because he's green there. I don't know. But he's not a Green Party type dude. My point is, Mike Lee's popular amongst the Republicans. He's in the clique with but like Lindsey Graham and Abbott and all these different people. Greg Abbott out of Texas, even people that like Republicans don't like McConnell. So he's kind of grandfathered in Mike Lee, in my opinion. And then again, you can see he'll be going for his third term. I think he holds it. Patty Murray, she holds pretty decisively. Again, when you have a state, when you have a section, you have a demographic of people, and you're the senator there for 2-3 terms, it doesn't just flip unless something very, very, again, something very, like what happened with Cuomo in New York happens. It has to be very conspiratorial. Not even conspiratorial. It has to be just outright bad. What did I just change? I just changed one to a Republican on accident, and I'm trying to see which one it was. Was it this one? All right, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go through them all anyway. But I'm just trying to see. Georgia, Pennsylvania. Oh, okay. We'll be good. That's what it was. I was trying to show you guys. But New York, we had what happened with Cuomo. You can see a possible upset. And you have an up-and-comer like Lee Zeldin, who just people love because, again, this person is emulating everything that the angry New Yorkers are angry about. He's coming out basically just pointing out all this different things and how nothing's changed between Cuomo and Hochul, all that different stuff. And they're still using Cuomo's actions against Hochul, which, you can call it dirty politics, but at the end of the day, it's politics. So New York's different than Washington. Patty Murray's holding. There's no reason for her not to. And Ron Johnson is holding as well. There's no reason for Ron Johnson not to hold. I was saying earlier, he's one of the biggest, him and Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, they're your big Republican guys that come forward. Now, these ones are completely considered safe, so I won't spend too much time belaboring these ones. I will go into the ones where I can see a possible upset. So Murkowski, a lot of people think she's going to lose because of, A, the amount of people running, and B, the fact that she's not too popular amongst the Republicans. I think she holds. She's just like Manchin for the Democrats. People might not like the fact that he goes against them a lot, but they're still going to vote for him because he goes with them enough. And Murkowski, again, sometimes people just think, well, I'd rather have a Republican that sucks than a Democrat that's good, or, vice versa. As ridiculous as that logic might seem, people do think that way. They just want a certain color. So, 4th time, she's going for a 5th. Yes, I agree. She's safe, as is Shelby. And the reason Shelby is safe, I'm going to hit them both at the same time because they're no, never mind. I thought they were by. The reason Shelby is safe, and here we are. The Bible Belt. So he's running in Alabama. He's not losing in Alabama, in my opinion. And then you can also see Arkansas. These are just red states that seldomly go blue for the senatorial spot. So I agree here. Both Boozman and Shelby, and it's not going to be Shelby that's running himself. It's going to be Katie Britt, but they both hold. I think Katie Britt steps in for Shelby, and Boozman he holds. It just makes sense. Now, and then the next one, I'm not skipping over Padilla, but I'm going to Blumenthal next in Connecticut because it's the same principle. He beat Linda McMahon, Vince McMahon's wife. So they had a lot of money in there, and he pounded her. So whatever the reason, how he's been in there for a while. He's controversial too. People don't like him on the right, but he's got enough support that Blumenthal's grandfathered in. He's going to win that race. And then Alex Padilla, that one's interesting because kind of like Katie Hochul, he got put in when Kamala Harris left, so he was never voted in. So it's one you could see possibly going to the Republican, but I don't think so. I think the West stays blue. It just makes sense. I think the farthest the red wall, as you would call it, the red wave goes is to Nevada. I don't think Oregon, Washington, or California will be the states. Now there is an interesting Oregon governor race that I have my eye on, but for senatorial seats, it's different. So then we got Hawaii, we got Brian Schatz, and it's the same as Mike Crapo in Idaho. So for Mike Crapo in Idaho, Republicans, he's going to hold yes. He's served multiple terms, and it's a very red state. And then you go to Hawaii, very blue state. So a lot of these are just because of that reason. That's why I don't need to go, and that's why they have them as basically layups too. Now we get to the one that's interesting, Tammy Duckworth. This one's interesting because she won for the first time in 16. Yes, it is typically a very blue area, but it's also, she's been getting a lot of criticism, even from her own party, that are basically saying, you and the AOCs are the reason we can't actually be progressive. Now, this is from other, this is tweets she received, and AOC received, and Omar received from other Democrats saying, thanks a lot, I lost my race because of your antics. So, I do have her winning. Illinois. Hold on, sorry. I do have her winning Illinois, but I don't think I think it's a lot closer than people think. I think Duckworth is not going to be as close as some of these other races. I think she does win, but if you have a margin option, I might take her not to cover the margin. Like say it's by 8 points, she might win by like 5. I just have a feeling. Indiana, Todd Young, he's going to win. Again, it's the same principle as Illinois, Idaho, Hawaii. Some of these just don't change. And in Kansas, this one's actually pretty close on the Vegas boards, which makes me a little, intrigued. But it goes to Kansas. I think Kansas wins. I think he wins. Again, a lot of these people, some of these people, not a lot of them, I know most of them. I don't know Todd Young and Jerry Moran, but I can just tell you by the metrics that they're winning. Rand Paul, John Kennedy, same exact story. These guys are the top draws for the Republican Party. People love to hear Rand Paul up there on the Republican side, just like on the Democratic side. They love to hear Schumer. They love to hear Bernie. Although I call Bernie independent. But you get what I'm saying. They love to hear Schiff. They love to hear all the different voices coming forward with that perspective. All the different, Newsom. And then on the Republican side, people love guys like John Kennedy out of Louisiana and Rand Paul out of Kentucky. So they both definitely win as well. So we're through all those, and now we are at the part where they're saying... Oh, no, it's the same section. I'm sorry. I thought it was another section. Chris Van Hollen, he's in Maryland. And this is an interesting one because they do have it as... This is where I try and look at the metrics. They do have it as basically he's running away with it. When I looked at Vegas' odds last, they were a little interesting. Now, they might have changed, but they had it closer than the dark blue. It was more. It should be in the light blue from what I remember, unless the odds have changed. Okay, no, yeah, where's he at? Hochul, Abbott, Mills. Maybe it's not in here. It's interesting that race isn't in here because I did find it odd, the Connecticut race. I thought it was an odd line when I saw it last, and now it's not in here, which I find very interesting. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I will say that from what I'm seeing, it's not in here. Sorry, guys. I thought it was. I saw it yesterday, and I remember saying, I wonder why it's closer than then. So it's interesting. I just feel like, where's it at? Maryland. That's why, not Connecticut, Maryland. Yeah, I thought it was closer than that, but Chris Van Hollen wins. I have it as, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a lean or safe. I'm going to go with safe just because I do think it's a safe win, and I just accidentally changed South Carolina. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to get off topic. I just wanted to make sure I hit all of these because I want to go into my reasoning. So yeah, Van Hollen, the Vegas lines were kind of indicating Chaffee might do the upset, but I do think Van Hollen holds. But it is interesting they're not showing it on my Vegas lines now. Roy Blunt's not running for re-election. Again, these are and I haven't seen much of Schmidt or Trudy Valentine, but when you have incumbents that run a few times, then someone replaces them, it's the same reason. I think Newsom, he kind of stepped in for an incumbent. Brian Kemp in Georgia did it. In this case, it's a senator, but they hold 90% of the time. So I do have Schmidt here winning in that state. So I just don't see, again, like Roy Blunt, if he was running, it'd be more obvious. But I think we don't want to just overthink it here. It's pretty obvious that I think in this specific case, Schmidt's going to win. For the same reason in North Dakota, now this incumbent's running, but John Hoeven's going to win North Dakota, yeah, because these are red states. You don't have people that vote that much where it's like they love Kristi Noem in these, and then they're going to just vote for a blue senator, or they love Whitmer in Michigan, but they're going to vote for a red senator. It just doesn't happen. So that's why I think in Missouri, I think in North Dakota, South Dakota, those states are going to hold for the Republican Party. So now we are at Chuck Schumer, and based off my metrics, he is a strong hold. Again, yes, you do have people leaving New York because they're not happy, but I have people that live in Florida, that hate Ron DeSantis, So, I mean, it doesn't mean the whole state's going to vote against him. He's grandfathered in. If anybody's safe, it's Chuck Schumer. He's not losing. And Vegas was backing that up. So Schumer's going to hold. James Lankford, again, Oklahoma, and both of these people. James Lankford and the person running, Mark Wayne Mullen, he's running for Jim Inhofe. But both of these people in Oklahoma are going to win on the Republican side because it's Oklahoma. That's really like all I need to say. It's why they're going to win in Kentucky. It's going to why they're going to win in all those states. So I'm looking for. It's weird. Oh, it's okay to the left. It's funny. I always thought Oklahoma was south of Tennessee, so I was like, "Where's Oklahoma here?" So. And don't worry, we're almost done. But I thought if I gave you every pick, you guys can make a good bit of money because I guarantee you, the last couple years, they talk about this Silver guy, and I'm always more accurate than him, so it pisses me off they talk about him. Here we got Ron Wyden, and again, a fifth-term incumbent's going to win. For the same reason Tim Scott's going to win South Carolina. So again, Oregon on both accounts staying blue, and then South Carolina we have going red. Or staying red, because Tim Scott, Republicans respect and like him. Even Democrats don't hate him. And then Ron Wyden is liked enough by the Democrats with the fact that he's a fifth-term incumbent that he's going to win. John Doonan in South Dakota and Patrick Leahy in Vermont is interesting. So John Thune's going to win because, again, the same logic as everything else. Leahy's very popular, and what's interesting with this is now Bernie Sanders becomes the senior-most senator. It was Leahy, which I always found interesting. The two oldest senators were in Vermont. But it's going to go to the person running. It's going to go to whoever's running for Leahy. So it will go to Peter Welch. I think Malloy makes it interesting, but I do think it goes to Welch, and the Democrats hold that one. So here's my official predictions. 54-46, which is interesting because Biden's the 46th president and Trump was the 45th. So I find that interesting. But this is what I believe happens in the senatorial races. I will be doing a separate video for the governor races, just not to convolute everything. But I hope you guys like this. Again, this is all off of just what I believe. I don't love or dislike any of these individuals, but I thought it was important to bring it up because I don't want the lines to change too much on you guys. So I'd watch them, specifically New Hampshire, Nevada, Arizona, and Pennsylvania is an interesting one, but I think Oz just wins because of his popularity. But yeah, New Hampshire, those ones are interesting. I think they're going to be closer than people think. And I have some interesting governor observations for my next video, but I wanted to get this out to you guys and just see what you guys thought. So if you wanted to just bet $10 on every race, or I know some you're not going to be getting the odds you're getting in others. If it lets you parlay, that's great. Let me know if you know a book that lets you parlay, because I would parlay all my picks, but it doesn't let me parlay politics from what I know. So yeah, this is who I have, and as I always say, happy earnings. I'm going to get our sports books picks out later, but like I say, these lines are changing quick. So I thought the quicker I got it out, the better chance you had of making some money. Take care and happy earnings.